They mocked our simple life, bet against our success, and came crawling back when their world collapsed. But they didn't know we were sitting on a $50 million secret hand. We were done playing small. This isn't just a story of betrayal, it's a reckoning. My name is Bethany Stone. I'm 38 years old, married for 15 years to a man named Peyton, and I live on a modest patch of farmland just outside a sleepy little town in Iowa. It's not the life most people dream about, not flashy, not prestigious, but it's the life I chose. Or more accurately, the life I fought for. To anyone who knew me before I left the city, before I married Peyton, before I walked away from the expectations of my ambitious, status-obsessed family, I was the girl who threw her future away for a farmer. My father, a retired corporate attorney, had visions of me becoming a partner at a law firm. My mother, a high society fixture who cared more about appearances than affection, wanted me married to a hedge fund manager before 30. And my sister, Tamara, the golden child, took great delight in reminding me every family gathering that I had chosen dirt over destiny. I met Peyton in college. I was finishing my degree in environmental science, and he was a graduate student teaching a course on sustainable agriculture. What started as academic admiration grew quickly into something deeper, something real. When he inherited his family's farm after his parents passed away, I didn't hesitate. I packed my bags, left behind the steel and glass towers of my past, and moved into a 2-bedroom farmhouse with peeling paint, aging pipes, and acres of land that seemed to breathe life into both of us. The years weren't always easy. There were floods and droughts, failed crops and broken equipment. But there was also laughter, growth, and an unwavering sense of purpose. Together, we turned that patch of dirt into something beautiful. Something ours. So when the phone rang one Thursday afternoon and my sister Tamara's name flashed across the screen, I felt the familiar flicker of apprehension settle in my stomach. I answered anyway. "Bethany," she said, voice tight, "we need to talk. It's important. Can you and Peyton come to the house tomorrow?" I hesitated. We hadn't been invited to their house in over 3 years. "What's this about?" There was a pause. "Just come. Please, it's serious." Against my better judgment, I agreed. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the part of me that still wanted to believe my family could change. Either way, the next morning, Peyton and I dressed in our best jeans and clean boots and drove into the city. Tamara lived in a gated suburb, where every house looked like it had been cloned from the same architectural template. Perfect lawns, perfect cars, perfect lies. We pulled into their circular driveway, parking behind a gleaming SUV. I could already feel the tension in my shoulders. The door opened before we knocked. Erin, our youngest sister, stood in the doorway. Her expression was unreadable. "Hey," she said quietly. "They're in the dining room." She led us through the house, past marble countertops and art that probably cost more than our tractor. When we entered the dining room, my parents were already seated at the long table. Tamara and her husband, Elijah, flanked them. Everyone looked up as we walked in. The room smelled faintly of expensive candles, and something burning, probably, whatever pretense of politeness they were holding on to. We sat across from them. The silence was thick. "So," I said finally, folding my hands. "What's this about?" My father cleared his throat. "We're in trouble. Financial trouble." Peyton and I exchanged a glance. "How bad?" I asked. Tamara leaned forward. "Bad enough that we could lose everything. The house, the savings, the retirement accounts?" I blinked. "Why are you telling us this?" "Because," Elijah said sharply, "we need your help." I frowned. "Help how?" "The farm," my mother said, her voice trembling. "We need you to sell the farm. It's the only asset not tied up in this mess. If you sell, we can pay off the debts and start over." The silence that followed was deafening. Peyton's hand found mine beneath the table. "You want us to sell our home," I said slowly, "to fix your mistakes." "It's not about mistakes," Elijah snapped. "It's about family. About survival." "No," I said. "It's about convenience. You all spent years treating us like we were beneath you. Now you want us to sacrifice everything we've built for you." Tamara stood, her composure cracking. "Bethany, you're playing house on a patch of weeds. This is real life." "So is what we've built," Peyton said calmly. "And it's not just land. It's our life. Please," my mother whispered, tears brimming. "Just think about it. We're not asking you to decide right now." My father's voice was cold. We need an answer by Monday." I stood slowly. You want us to destroy our lives to save yours. No one answered. We'll think about it, I said. But maybe you should, too. Think about what kind of people ask that of their own family. As we turned to leave, my father's voice followed us. You'll come to your senses once you realize what you owe us. Peyton paused at the door. After 30 years of being treated like the family disappointment, I said over my shoulder, what exactly do we owe you? No one had an answer. The drive home was silent. Peyton's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. When we pulled into the driveway, the golden evening light painted the fields in warm hues. I looked at the land, the house, the barn, everything we'd fought for. I'm not selling, I said. I know, Peyton replied. But there's something I need to show you. He led me to the barn, to a filing cabinet I'd never seen him open before. Inside was a thick manila folder. What is this? I asked. Proof, he said. Of who we are. He spread out papers, legal documents, patent registrations, and financial statements. This, he pointed to a patent, is for the irrigation system I built from scratch. It's used across farms in the Midwest. You patented it. I breathed. 3 years ago. This one's for the soil analysis software. We've got clients nationwide. Peyton, why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted to build something real before I started talking about it. I stared at him. At the man I thought I knew. Beth, he said, this farm isn't just a farm. It's a research and development facility. Everything we've done here is part of something bigger? He handed me a financial statement. Are we worth this much? Stone Agricultural Technologies, he said. I started it 5 years ago. We're worth nearly $50 million. I sank into a chair, my world tilting. Your brother Elijah, he continued, shorted our stock. Bet against us. Used your parents' retirement fund. I looked up. He bet against us. And now they're coming tomorrow. All of them. Aaron says they won't take no for an answer. Peyton's voice was calm, but I saw the fire in his eyes. Let them come, he said. I stared at the man who had stood quietly by my side for 15 years, and saw, maybe for the first time, just how dangerous loyalty could be. You've been planning this, I said. No, he said. I've been preparing. There's a difference. He met my eyes. Tomorrow, he said, they learn who we are. The morning after the barbecue at Tamara's estate lingered in Bethany's mind like a bruise. The laughter, the jabs wrapped in smiles. The calculated cruelty, every bit of it replayed itself as she and Peyton moved through their early chores. The tomatoes needed harvesting. The irrigation system needed its daily check. And their roadside produce stand was already gathering local customers. But even amidst the ordinary rhythms of their life, something had changed. There was a tension beneath Peyton's usual calm, and a steely resolve tightening Bethany's spine. She'd spent a lifetime shrinking herself to fit into the mold her family had carved out for her, the underachieving sister. The disappointment, the one who settled. But now, she was no longer hiding. 3 days later, her phone rang just after breakfast. It was her mother. Bethany, her mother said, her voice unusually hesitant. Can you and Peyton come by this weekend? Saturday afternoon, it's important. Bethany glanced at her husband, who was rinsing strawberries at the sink. Is everyone going to be there? Yes, her mother replied. We need to speak as a family. Of course, Bethany said. We'll be there. Saturday arrived heavy with gray clouds and thicker silences. Peyton didn't say much. On the drive, his hands were firm on the steering wheel, his eyes scanning the road ahead, as if already planning every possible scenario. When they pulled up to the Blair family home, a sprawling house with meticulously maintained hedges and flower beds arranged like military formations, Bethany's stomach churned. She hadn't stepped into that house in over a year. Inside, her family was already assembled in the living room. Her parents sat on the main couch, backs straight, expressions tight. Tamara was perched elegantly on the armrest, her face as composed as a porcelain doll. Elijah leaned against the fireplace, arms crossed, looking like a man with something to prove. Aaron sat apart from them, visibly uncomfortable, her eyes flicking toward Bethany with guilt and concern. Bethany and Peyton sat in the 2 empty chairs that had been placed there for them, front and center, like defendants in court. We appreciate you coming, Donald said, steepling his fingers like a CEO addressing a failing branch. There's no easy way to say this, so I'll be direct. Our family is in trouble. Financially, Bethany sat very still. How bad is it? Elijah stepped forward, his voice sharp and brittle. We could lose everything. The house, our savings. The Hamptons property is already on the market. We were hoping, her mother interjected, that you might be able to help. Peyton shifted beside her. How? Tamara's voice was calm, almost rehearsed. Your farm. It's the only asset not affected by Elijah's situation. Bethany blinked. You want us to sell the farm? It's just land, Elijah snapped. Dirt and crops. You can buy more of that anywhere. Bethany stood slowly. You're asking us to give up our lives or home because you made poor choices. We're asking you to be part of the family, Tamara countered. To help us survive this. Bethany's voice broke like glass. Where was that family when you mocked our life? When you called our work simple? When you laughed at our wedding and made Peyton feel like an outsider? Tamara flinched. We need an answer, Donald said. By Monday, Bethany looked at her parents, her siblings. These people who had never truly seen her, never understood her, and now they needed her. They needed the sister they'd always looked down on. We'll think about it, she said, turning to leave. But you should think about something, too. About what kind of people ask others to burn down their home to clean up someone else's mess. Back at the farm, the anger simmered just below Bethany's skin. As Peyton shut off the truck, he spoke for the first time in hours. I need to show you something. She followed him into the barn, to a small office she rarely entered. From a locked drawer, Peyton pulled a thick folder and spread its contents across the desk. What is this? He pointed to the first document. A patent for an advanced irrigation system. I built it 3 years ago. It's used on hundreds of farms now. The second one is predictive soil analysis software. We've got over 30 patents, Beth. The farm isn't just a farm. It's an innovation hub. Bethany scanned the financials, the licensing deals, and the registered company name, Stone Agricultural Technologies. We're worth millions, she whispered. Peyton nodded. And your brother? He bet against us. Literally, he convinced your parents and his clients to short our stock. Bethany's head reeled. My own family tried to profit off our failure. Her phone buzzed. A message from Aaron. They're coming to the farm tomorrow. All of them. Dad says they won't take no for an answer. Bethany showed it to Peyton. He didn't flinch. Let them come, he said, at exactly 2 o'clock the next day. The Blairs arrived at 3 cars, a child in tow, Elijah in a tailored suit, Tamara with her leather portfolio. Bethany opened the door and welcomed them in. We've brought the paperwork, Donald said, setting the documents on the coffee table. Let's talk about paperwork. Peyton replied, pulling out his file. The farm is not for sale. It belongs to Stone Agricultural Technologies, a federally recognized research facility, with patents, grants, legal protections. He handed them copies. The room fell silent. We own it outright, Bethany added. And you can't touch it, Elijah sputtered. But, family? Bethany stood, voice steady. You gambled, you lost, and now you want us to pay for your mistakes. Tamara's voice cracked. What do you want from us? Bethany looked at them, finally seeing them. I want you to leave. But we're family, her mother sobbed. Bethany turned away. No, not anymore. The room full of stunned faces was silent until Leonard, their attorney, finally spoke. I believe you have some questions for my client. Leonard opened his briefcase with the precision of a surgeon. Pulling out documents and arranging them on the coffee table like surgical tools, the sale papers Donald Blair had brought now looked flimsy and pathetic next to the official legal documents taking over the table. Let's start with the basics, Leonard said, adjusting his glasses. The property in question is owned outright by Stone Agricultural Technologies, a corporation wholly owned by Peyton and Bethany Stone. No liens, no mortgages, no encumbrances of any kind. That's impossible, Donald said. We helped them with the down payment. Tamara added quickly. Which was repaid in full with interest 18 months after the purchase. Leonard interrupted smoothly. He slid a document across the table. Donald stared at it like it might bite him. Furthermore, Leonard continued. Any attempt to force a sale through legal channels would be inadvisable. The property is protected under several agricultural preservation statutes, and the ongoing research conducted here has federal grant protections. Federal grants, Bethany's mother whispered. Oh yes, Peyton said. The Department of Agriculture has been very interested in our work. We're currently developing drought-resistant crop systems that could revolutionize farming in climate-affected regions. Elijah finally found his voice. This is all very impressive, but It doesn't change the fact that we're family. We need help. Family, Bethany repeated, standing. The word tasted bitter in her mouth. Let's talk about family, shall we? She walked to the mantel and picked up a framed photo from her college graduation. Remember this day? I graduated summa cum laude with a degree in environmental science. You know what you said to me, Dad? Her father's face was stone. You said, too bad it's not a real degree like business or law. You said I'd wasted 4 years studying dirt and plants. She set the photo down and picked up another. Her wedding day. And this day, when I married the love of my life. You spent the entire reception apologizing to people for my poor choice. You told Aunt Margaret you hoped I'd come to my senses before it was too late. Bethany, her mother began. I'm not finished. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook. Every family gathering for 5 years, every holiday, every birthday, you made sure I knew exactly where I stood. The disappointment, the failure, the one who settled. Tamara began to cry, mascara streaking down her cheeks. We didn't mean you meant every word, Bethany snapped. You called our life a joke. You said real life happens on Wall Street, not in our little bubble. You mocked everything we built, everything we cared about. But we didn't know, Tamara sobbed. We didn't know about the company, about the money, and that's exactly the point. The words exploded out of Bethany. You didn't know, and you didn't care to know. You saw what you wanted to see, 2 people you could look down on to make yourselves feel better. Leonard cleared his throat. If I may, there's another matter we should address. The financial losses your family has suffered. He pulled out another document. Stone Agricultural Technologies has been tracking the short positions taken against our stock. We're required to report significant trades to the STI. Elijah went even paler. The trades were made through Pinnacle Investment Group, where Mr. Elijah Olson serves as senior partner. The total exposure was approximately $2.3 million, representing the retirement accounts of 17 clients. 17 families, Peyton said quietly. 17 families who trusted you with their life savings, and you gambled it all on a bet that we would fail. It was a sure thing. Elijah shouted. Agricultural tech startups fail 90% of the time. The odds were that you'd do your homework before risking other people's money, Leonard interrupted. Did you visit the company? Research the patents? Look into the leadership team's background? Silence. You didn't, did you? Leonard said. You saw farming and assumed it was worthless. Just like you assumed we were worthless. We can sue, Donald said suddenly. For the losses. For damages. Leonard smiled, and it wasn't pleasant. Please do. I'd love to explain to a jury how your son-in-law lost your retirement money betting against your daughter's company. The optics alone would be fascinating. What do you want? Tamara asked, her voice broken. What do you want from us? Bethany looked around at the people who shared her blood but had never been her family. Her parents, who made her feel small. Her sister, who turned cruelty into an art. Elijah, who gambled their future on arrogance. And little Tiffany, sitting in the corner, watching her world fall apart. I want you to leave, Bethany said simply. I want you to walk out that door and never come back. Bethany, please, her mother begged. We're sorry. We made mistakes. But we're family. No, Bethany said. And the word felt like freedom. Family doesn't treat each other the way you treated us. Family doesn't spend years tearing each other down. Family doesn't come crawling back only when they need something. But what about us? Tamara asked. What about Tiffany? What about her future? Bethany looked at her niece. Tiffany's future was never my responsibility. It was yours. And you gambled it away. You're going to let us lose everything? Donald asked. After everything we've done for you. Everything you've done for me. Bethany laughed bitterly. Besides, spending 30 years, making me feel like I wasn't good enough. He had no answer. The meeting is over, Peyton said. Leonard, would you escort our guests out? Wait, Tamara cried, desperation rising. You'll regret this, Bethany. You'll regret turning your back on family. When you're old and alone, you'll remember this day and wish you'd made a different choice. Bethany met her sister's eyes. For the first time, she wasn't afraid. You're right, I will remember this day. I'll remember it as the day I finally stopped letting you define my worth. They filed out like mourners leaving a funeral, taking their demands and their entitlement with them. Through the window, Bethany watched them drive away, leaving behind nothing but dust clouds and silence. For the first time in 30 years, she was free. The silence after they left felt different than any quiet Bethany had ever experienced. Not empty, like the air itself had been holding its breath and could finally exhale. Leonard packed up his briefcase with the same methodical precision he'd used to unpack it. "Well," he said, snapping the latches shut, "that went about as expected." "You've done this before?" Bethany asked. "Not exactly like this, but I've seen enough family dynamics to know how these things play out." He straightened his tie. "People show you who they are when they're desperate. Your family showed you. And now you move forward without them." After Leonard left, Bethany and Peyton sat on their front porch, watching the sun set over their fields, the same fields her family had called worthless dirt just hours earlier. "Do you think I was too harsh?" she asked. Peyton was quiet for a long moment, his fingers tracing patterns on the porch railing. "Do you remember what Tamara said at our wedding? About us playing in the mud? Hard to forget. I knew that day that this moment would come eventually. Maybe not exactly like this, but something like it." He turned to look at her. "They never saw us, Beth. They saw what they wanted to see, people they could feel superior to, but they're still my family. Are they?" The question hung between them like morning mist. Before she could answer, her phone rang. Erin's name flashed on the screen. "I should probably take it," Bethany said. "She's different from the rest," she answered on the third ring. "Hello, Beth." Erin's voice was thick with tears. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Erin, no. Let me say this. I knew how they treated you, and I never stood up for you. I told myself I was staying neutral, but there is no neutral when someone you love is being hurt." Bethany closed her eyes, feeling tears she hadn't expected. "You were caught in the middle. I was a coward, and now, God, Beth, the things they're saying about you. Dad's telling everyone you abandoned the family. Mom's acting like you destroyed their lives. And Tamara, bitter. She keeps saying you planned this whole thing. That you and Peyton set them up somehow. We didn't set anyone up. We just stopped pretending to be less than we are. I know that. I know you. Even if I didn't defend you like I should have." Erin's voice cracked. "Can you ever forgive me?" Bethany looked out at the land she and Peyton had built their life on. "You're calling me now? That counts for something. I want to see you. Not to ask for anything. Just, I miss my sister. The real one, not the version they tried to make you into. Come for dinner on Sunday. Bring whoever you want. But leave the drama at home. Just me. I promise." After she hung up, Peyton reached over and took her hand. "One down," he said. "Think any of the others will come around?" "Does it matter?" Bethany considered it. A week ago, the thought of losing her family would have terrified her. Now, sitting there with her husband, on land they owned free and clear, surrounded by the success they had built together, it felt more like shedding old skin. "No," she said finally. "It doesn't matter." The next morning, Bethany was in the garden when she heard a car in the driveway. Her heart jumped, half expecting her parents to return with more pleas or demands. But when she looked up, it was a woman she didn't recognize stepping out of a modest sedan. She was maybe in her early 40s, wearing jeans and a simple blouse, holding a manila folder. "Mrs. Stone," she called out. "I'm Sarah Martinez from the Department of Agriculture. I was hoping to speak with you and your husband about your drought resistance research." Peyton emerged from the barn, wiping his hands on a towel. "Sarah, you made good time. The preliminary results you sent were incredible," she said, shaking his hand. "We'd like to fast-track the grant approval for the expanded trials." "Grant approval?" Bethany asked. $2.7 million over 3 years, Sarah said with a smile. "Your husband's work could change how we approach farming in drought-affected regions. We're talking about feeding millions of people." Bethany turned to Peyton, stunned. "You didn't mention this. I wanted to be sure before I got your hopes up," he said. "But yes, we're about to get very busy." As Sarah and Peyton discussed research protocols and timelines, Bethany found herself thinking about her family's visit. They had come here demanding she sacrifice everything to save them from their mistakes, never realizing they were asking her to destroy something that could help feed the world. The irony was almost poetic. They'd spent years calling her life small, insignificant, worthless, yet she and Peyton had been quietly working on something far greater than they ever could have imagined. That evening, as the sun painted the sky with streaks of orange and pink, Bethany and Peyton walked the perimeter of their fields. The same path they'd walked countless times now felt different, charged with purpose. "Any regrets?" Peyton asked. Bethany thought of her mother's tears, of Tamara's desperate pleas, of little Tiffany's confused gaze. She thought of decades of ridicule, of holidays filled with cold shoulders and biting remarks, of the silent erosion of her self-worth. No, she said, and she meant it. No regrets. Even about your family. They made their choice long before today, Bethany replied. They chose to see us as less than we were. They chose to bet against us, and figuratively, she stopped walking and turned to him. I choose us. I choose this life, this work, this future we're building. Peyton smiled the same warm, steady smile that had made her fall in love with him all those years ago. Good, because I have plans for us. Big plans. Bigger than a $50 million company. She teased. Much bigger, he said, gesturing to the golden fields that stretched beyond the horizon. We're going to change the world, Beth. One seed at a time. They walked back toward the house hand in hand. Bethany could feel something inside her shift, something long overdue. The part of her that had always longed for her family's approval, that had clung to their criticism like transit, was gone. In its place was something stronger, clearer. She was right where she belonged, with exactly the right person, doing exactly the work she was meant to do, and for the first time in her life, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.